Okay, so this is gonna be. I'm probably not gonna call it part one. I'll just call like a very quick comic haul again or something like that, because this is the. I'm returning these books today. At this point, and I don't like doing the books I have returned. I'm like, oh, I haven't this book is out, and I don't show the book at least at first. So the first two up. I'm gonna do this movie first. First two upper movies. Sisu, I really enjoyed. It was a nice surprise. It was like even more. It's one of those movies that everyone hypes up, and you're like, it's not gonna be as good as they say it is, isn't it? Isn't it? And it's not. It's better almost. It's almost better than what they say it, and everyone is saying it is. Honestly, IMDb had like a 7. I would give like a 7.5, honestly. And I think I almost want. It's definitely better than any of the John Wick sequels. If you like the how like grounded in reality and like tight and compact the first movie was, it wasn't trying to like world build and introduce a bunch of characters you didn't care about. And this is your movie. If you like the first John Wick, this is as close to it as you're gonna get without it, world building. And there is some in here. You get to learn about the characters' past, but it's really quick. Just a nice, somewhat fun movie. I do think that the marketing told you that the dog didn't die, and it was like in a very self-aware, tongue-in-cheek sort of way. And I thought that's what the movie would be. It would be a satire, tongue-in-cheek kind of movie. And you could argue maybe at points it was, but it really wasn't. It was a lot more serious than I thought it would be. But I still liked it. I still very much enjoyed it. It's very violent. It's one of those movies that like it's fun when it's violent and when it's going like almost over the top. There's a few over the top scenes, but not too much to where like the main actor, this guy, was saying. I believe it's him. He read the script and said, "Oh my god, it's a batshit crazy script. I got to be in it." And watching the movie, and I read that after the fact, and I was like, "Yeah, kind of." But then the more I thought about, it, like, yeah, okay, parts here and there were pretty crazy, but nothing like to that degree. But it's still an amazing movie, and I highly recommend you check it out if you like action movies. Then we have the movie for a completely different audience, well, the opposite, which is ironic. And this shows how much like I'm like how open I am to movies and comics and everything. I'm not like geared to one specific genre. I'm okay with any genre for the most part. I think the only one I can't even think of one I don't like. But anyways, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. A movie that, surprisingly enough, we watched as a family. Everyone. It was crazy. I didn't think we would do that. I thought it'd just be, if anything, Mom and I, and maybe my sister. Was everybody. And I really, really enjoyed this movie. I had read the book about a few years ago. I want to say it was probably before the pandemic, so it was a while ago. And there were certain things, because it's a very memorable book. There's a lot of things you remember in the book because it's pretty controversial, and you remember, oh yeah, that's why. And I was surprised that they kept most of that in. It is, I mean, it was a book from the 1970s, like 1970, so it makes sense why they would be able to adapt it, because I think, 50 years later we have evolved as a society, and we're able to, put more controversial junk into kids' books, I really enjoyed this. The standout character is Kathy Bates' character, because it's the grandmother character, and her and Margaret have like a damn good chemistry, and it reminded me of like my grandmother and I. And it's kind of a bit emotional because I lost my grandmother last year, so it was kind of like one of those movies that gets to you more than it would to the next person who doesn't have the best relationship with their grandparents. And it was like and it was the mother character. I forget who she is. She is Rachel McAdams. I don't know character specific names. So Rachel McAdams' character was focused on more, I believe, in the book. I don't think they focused too much on the mother. I believe it's first person perspective, like I, me, her, kind of I me, you kind of thing. So, and the mother character is focused more in the movie, and that was also a really good dynamic. And then the religious dynamic and everything, that was pretty maturely put. It was maturely how do you say that? Like it was very maturely dealt with. It would because back then it seemed like people were really into religion. Like it was a touchy subject, and they really drive that point home in this movie. And I was really surprised with this movie. Definitely a high recommend for anyone who's read the book. And honestly, what's funny is that the author, Judy Blume, she said the movie was better than her book. So the movie was better than her book, the book that she wrote, which is crazy. Usually they say, "Oh, the movie is not as good as my book," and then she was like, "No, it's better. The movie's better." It's crazy. Then we got Ratcatcher, and I've read this book 1,000 times. I about like 5, and it's still pretty good. I noticed this time was a bit slow in the start. Maybe it's because I remembered a lot of it, so I was like, okay, I know what happens here. But I said like at the end you learn something about the character, and it's kind of crazy, and yeah, it is. Still a good book, but I think I should probably wait about a year or two until I read this again, because I remembered a bit too much, I feel. I mean, serious stuff I didn't remember, obviously, but it's kind of like one of those things where, like, I know how this ends, so. But for the most part, I mean, I think the ending, even, I don't know, actually, I don't know what it was. It's kind of, also, I don't know what it was. I think it was just the fact that, like, I remembered enough of what happened. Like, I know that it ended this way specifically, not specifics, but in general, it ended this way, so I was like, okay, you know, and then maybe a year or two from now, I'll completely forget. One thing I want to mention that this is $20 for a small ass book like this. Thank God I got it at the library. Like even for a book I highly recommend. I still highly recommend it, because your first, you know, my first read through of this book, I really enjoyed it, and I highly recommended it. So I'd still highly recommend it. I cannot say I highly recommend, apparently. But yeah, $20 for a book is small. It's Vertigo too. Usually Vertigo was pretty good with the pricing. Like this, the same price you can get Preacher Book 1. Yeah, softcover, but 300 plus pages for the same price as this smaller size hardcover. Yeah, it's a hardcover, but it's smaller size. It's like almost, it's only a little bit bigger than your DVD. Then we have Mirrorbreaker, and I enjoyed this, but it's ultimately forgettable. If you like the DC Young Adult Inc., the DC Inc. graphic novels, you'll like this one enough. It's serviceable. There was stuff in it I liked. I didn't know much about the Mira character, so I learned a lot, and apparently they did stick true to her. They did stick true to her original origin. They didn't change too much, from what I remember. From what I had seen. Like, there was a comment on the trailer of this book, and the trailer for this book, and they're like, "Oh, it looks like they're sticking true to their original origin." That's surprising, because usually they'll change stuff for, you know, reasons. Then we have Teen Titans Earth 1 Volume 2, and while it's not as good as the first, I would still recommend checking the series out. It's a different interpretation of the characters, and it's done right. It's a different interpretation, so it kind of changes. And I'm still glad that I didn't put it in, though, but I got Volume 1 instead of Volume 5 of Scott Lobdell's run, that's why I still wanted Scott Lobdell's run. Volume 5 was the last volume of his run. It was one of those books where I was like, you know what, if I got that instead, you know, let's just take it and read it, and glad I did. It was one of the only times I got the wrong book, and it worked out in the end, for the most part. And I didn't put it in this time for Volume 5. I'm pretty sure they won't. I'm sure it won't happen. I'm just gonna probably seek different avenues to finally finish that series, or put it in one more time. Third time's charm, maybe, but I don't know. Last, but certainly not the least, we have the I would say least. We have the Unfriended, and this is the weakest entry by far of this series. Now, the series in general, I really highly, I really like. It's a super underrated series, and I highly recommend you check it out. But this is not the best entry to read after, I think it was like volume 6 or whatever, because this, chronologically, it is a prequel, so you could technically read this first. Now, I would almost say not to take my word for it and to just read it anyways, but do not read this first, because this is a pretty bad interpretation of what the comic is and how well paced it is. This is slow as hell. This felt like it was 250 pages. I think it's 150 pages. It's kind of boring, honestly. Some of it I liked. I liked when they were talking about, like, the success of the book in a story within a story. You know, it's book within the book of the Unwritten. It just, everything else kind of felt boring. It was kind of like I should be interested in this, but I'm not. And I like this story within the story because it does tell. There's 2 stories told in here. It's the story within the story, the Harry Potter spoof, and then there's the writer of the story. That's his story, you know, the father of our main character in the in the Unwritten series. Again, it's a prequel. But I found it wholly unnecessary, honestly. You could probably skip that and you wouldn't lose too much. I think there's a few things that they explain, and there's like a callback to actually, so you do have to technically. So I said that you could probably read this first. You probably can't, because I remember correctly. There is something that is mentioned in there. I believe is a spoiler. I could be wrong, but I believe it was something that mentioned in there that happened in book 5 as a huge spoiler. So, or book whatever it was. I lost track. And also it's 10 volumes at least. I thought it was 9, but it's 10 in total. I believe 10. I saw 10th volume when I was soliciting the next volume. It was volume 8. Yeah, volume 8. So I did miss. I don't think I ever said that. I think I just said next volume, and I don't think I ever said, oh yeah, 9-volume series. You know, I think I kept saying that. I said it once, but I think it's a while ago. And that's it. 10 minutes. Good. Yeah. So if I had to, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do a little like out of 10 score. 7.5 out of 10, so close to, so it's probably still 7, but closer to 7.5. 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10. 5 out of 10. 6 out of 10. And 2 out of 10. So that was your quick, if you wanted your know, that's a, I think it does tie it well together. I think it ties it together. I'm going to say this video. I can't talk.